Hello children, good evening. Today we deals with the seventh chapter, that is coordination in life processes. In this lesson we discuss about the key points. First, look at the picture. Here two terms are there, leptin and ghrelin. These are the very important hormones in our digestive system. They mainly control hunger. Most of the times we feel hunger pangs. In Telugu it is called Akali Korika. We feel hunger most of the times. The reason is whenever the glucose content in our blood decreases, then a hormone is released from our digestive system, from our stomach. That hormone is called ghrelin. This hormone increases hunger, and this information is sent to the brain, mainly to the diencephalon, through the 10th cranial nerve, that is vagus nerve. So then whenever the ghrelin hormone releases, then we feel hunger, we feel hungry. And when we feel hungry, we eat food, and after some time we stop taking food. Why we stop taking food means, then whenever our stomach is full of food, then another hormone is released, that is leptin. That means it controls the hunger. So these two hormones, ghrelin and leptin, one is stimulating the hunger and another one is suppressing the hunger. This ghrelin hormone, it is causing the hunger pangs, akali korikalu, and leptin hormone, it is suppressing the hunger. So these two hormones, they are very very important. Ghrelin hormone, it is mainly responsible for hunger pangs. Whenever the glucose content decreases in our blood, then ghrelin hormone is released. Then the signals are sent to the brain through the 10th cranial nerve, that is called vagus nerve, and the information is sent to the diencephalon. So like that, hunger pangs, these two hormones, leptin and ghrelin. Next one, here a strong relationship is there between the taste and smell. Here it is nose, inside the nose receptors are there, they are called olfactory receptors or receptors for smell. These receptors, these are also called chemoreceptors. That means they receive signals from the smell of the food, and that information is sent to the brain. They are called olfactory receptors. And here it is tongue. I am saying a strong relationship is there between the taste and smell. Here tongue is there. Upon the tongue, several number of taste buds are present. They taste different tastes like sour, salt, sweet, bitter, etc etc. And these taste buds, they play a key role in tasting the food. Here taste buds are present on the tongue, and that taste buds, here saliva is present in the buccal cavity. Whatever food we take, that food, it dissolves in the saliva, and that dissolved food, it enters into the taste bud, and receptors present in the taste bud, they send the information to the brain, and that's why we taste the food. So there is a strong relationship between the taste and smell. We completely feel, we perceive taste of the food when we smell it and when we taste it. So there is a strong relationship between the taste and smell. This is a simple flowchart. Here is it is tongue, taste buds are present, and the information is sent to the brain. Here it is mouth. Within the oral cavity or buccal cavity, salivary glands are present. They secrete saliva. In the saliva, food is dissolved. And this is here it is nose, and inside the nose, olfactory receptors are present. They are also called chemoreceptors. The information is sent to the brain. Like that, we completely taste the food. So there is a strong relationship between the tongue, between the taste and smell. Here it is same. This is tongue, on the tongue taste buds are present. Taste buds are very very small in size, they are present on the tongue. An opening is present at the taste bud, and whenever we take food, that food is dissolved in saliva. That dissolved food, it enter into the taste bud, and that information is sent to the brain. Then we taste the food, and here it is palate. When we press the food to the palate, then only we taste the food properly, otherwise we can't taste. It takes so much of time. So this palate, it also helps in tasting the food. And this is dentition, human dentition. We all know that we have 32 teeth. We have two jaws, upper jaw and lower jaw. Two jaws contain 16 teeth, total of 32 teeth. In these 32 teeth, this is one jaw, this is lower jaw, upper jaw. In these 32, in these here 16 teeth are present. Here for dentition, we are taking only half of the jaw. We have two jaws, and in these two jaws, here we are looking at one jaw, and in this one jaw we are taking only half jaw, and we are discussing about the different type of teeth. These two teeth are called incisors. These two are called incisors. They are helpful for cutting the food into small pieces. They are helpful for cutting the food. And this one teeth, it is called canine. It is useful for tearing the meat, for tearing. And these two are called premolars, and these three are called molars. These premolars and molars, they are essential for grinding the food, and that means they help for grinding the food. Like that, incisors, canines, premolars and molars are there. On the half jaw we find two incisors, one canine, two premolars and three molars. 2 1 2 3. This is called dental formula. Total of 16 teeth, two incisors, one canine, two premolars and three molars. And like that, here adult 32 permanent teeth. This is called dental formula. 2 by 2, 1 by 1, 2 by 2, 3 by 3. This is very very important. This is called human dental formula. Here, if we observe the half jaw, we find two incisors, one canine, two premolars and three molars. This is in case of lower jaw. Here we also have upper jaw, and if we take half of the upper jaw, same 2 by 2, two incisors on the upper jaw, two incisors on the lower jaw, one canine on the upper half jaw and one canine on the lower half jaw. And here two premolars on the upper half jaw and two premolars on the lower half jaw. Here three molars on the upper half jaw and three molars on the lower half jaw. Like that, this is called dental formula. 2 by 2, 1 by 1, 2 by 2, 3 by 3. Like that, we have four types of teeth: incisors for cutting, canines for tearing, premolars and molars for grinding the food. This is about dental formula. Here we are taking only half jaw for dentition, for dental formula, not the full jaw. This is about dental formula. And here it is a simple experiment. And if we observe the mouth, here tongue is there, and here the teeth are there, and different type of teeth, and here tongue and buccal cavity, oral cavity is there. If we observe the oral cavity or buccal cavity, muscles are present in the oral cavity or buccal cavity, and saliva is also released into the oral cavity. Here mainly 3 pairs of salivary glands are present in the mouth. 3 pairs. That salivary glands, they release saliva, and that saliva contains an enzyme called ptyalin or salivary amylase. And here muscles are present in the mouth, in the oral cavity. These muscles, they help in the churning of food. That means for moving the food across the mouth. That muscles, they are under the control of fifth cranial nerve. The movements of mouth muscles, they are under control of fifth cranial nerve. And here our teeth, by the action of our teeth, by the action of our tongue and muscles, the food is cut into small pieces. That is called mastication. And here in the mouth, food is cut into small pieces, and it is formed as a small ball-like structure. That ball-like structure of food that is formed in the mouth is called bolus. And this is a dental formula: 2 by 2, 1 by 1, 2 by 2, 3 by 3. And here is a small test. This test, the aim of this test is to prove the action of saliva on floor means pindi, saliva ante ingile. And for this experiment we need test tube and starch means pindi, and iodine, water, etc, etc. And here the procedure: first we take two test tubes. Into the two test tubes we take water, and to the two test tubes we add a small amount of starch. ఫ్లోర్ మీన్స్ పిండి కొద్దిగా యాడ్ చేయాలి. తర్వాత we stir the test tubes, and to one test tube we add saliva, small amount of a spoon of saliva. And to the another test tube we add nothing, and keep them for some time. After some time, if we add iodine to both the test tubes, after some time we are adding iodine to both of the test tube, then we find the result like this. Here this one, to this test tube we are adding saliva, and to this test tube we add nothing. When we add iodine solution, this solution, here we are adding saliva to this, and in the floor starch is present. That starch, it is converted into sugars by the action of ptyalin present in the saliva. So here no starch, so this floor, it does not convert into blue black color. Here saliva is present. In the saliva, ptyalin or amylase enzyme is there. That enzyme acts on floor, that enzyme acts on starch present in the floor, and starch is converted into sugars. So here no starch, so when we add iodine, here no starch, so this one, it does not convert into blue black color. But here we add nothing, so here floor is there. In the floor starch is present. When we add iodine solution, this solution, it turns into blue black color. It indicates the observation is, it indicates the action of saliva on the floor. Here saliva is present. That saliva contains ptyalin. That ptyalin, it converts starch present in the floor into sugars. So no starch here, so no conversion into blue black color. This is the observation. And here differences between the bolus and chyme. This is also important. Bolus is the food that is mashed in the mouth. Actually it is a ball-like structure of food that is formed in the mouth. Chyme, it is actually formed in the stomach. It is the repeatedly digested food in the stomach. Actually chyme, it is in partially liquid state. It is formed in the intestine. It is formed in the stomach. This bolus, it is actually alkaline in nature. That means it is basic in nature, because here bolus is formed by the action of saliva. It is slightly alkaline, and here it is acidic in nature. Chyme, an acid is released in stomach. There is hydrochloric acid, so it is acidic in nature. Here teeth and saliva turn food into bolus. By the action of teeth and saliva, the food turns into bolus. Here chyme, stomach digests food by peristalsis into chyme. Here actually stomach is called it's acts as mixer, or it acts as a grinder. So the food is grinded and the chyme is formed. Here bolus, soft round ball of food that has been chewed. Here it is chyme, it is the liquefied part of food. And bolus, food going from mouth to stomach. Here food, bolus, enters, it is engulfed and it is sent to the stomach. Here food going from stomach to small intestine, chyme. These are the main differences between the bolus and chyme. It may be asked as a 2 marks question. And here esophagus, the functions of esophagus. Here esophagus walls secrete mucus, slimy substance. Actually this esophagus, the inner lining of esophagus, it is surrounded by mucous membrane. That mucous membrane secretes oily like substance that is called mucus. It is a long tube like structure. Upper end connects with pharynx and lower end connects with stomach, and here passes food to stomach by wave like movement of valves. Actually food passes like a wave. That movement is called peristaltic movement, and it is made up of muscles, and it is elastic in nature, and the walls carry on wave like movement by contraction and relaxation. Here food moves in a wave like manner, that is carried out by the action of muscles present in the esophagus. Here it is a small experiment, and this is called cycle tube, and this is potato. First we take a cycle tube, cut like this, and inside the cycle tube we lubricate the tube with oil, and we put a potato into it, and if we try to move the potato, it moves like that. In a similar manner food pass in the esophagus. This is the movement of food in the esophagus. Here it is moving in a wave like manner. This movement is called peristaltic movement, and here in the esophagus two types of muscles are present. One type of muscles are called circular muscles, and another type of muscles longitudinal muscles. By the contraction and relaxations of circular and longitudinal muscles, food is passed in a wave like manner. This movement is called peristaltic movement. Like that food enters into the stomach. Here it is stomach. I already told, it is a mixer, and it acts as like grinder. It is very important part in our digestive system, and food from esophagus enters into the stomach. This stomach, the walls of the stomach, they secrete a juice. The walls of the stomach secretes a digestive juice that is called gastric juice. Gastric juice contains an acid. That acid is called hydrochloric acid. Here in the stomach the medium is acidic, and it also releases an enzyme that is called pepsin. Pepsin acts on proteins, and so the food enters into the stomach. Food acts as a mixer. It mixes the food. Here muscles are present in the stomach, and peristaltic movement occur here, and the food is it is grinded like that. And here these actions takes place. Actually stomach is divided into two parts. The upper portion is called cardiac stomach, and the lower portion is called pyloric stomach. Cardiac and pyloric stomachs. And here first peristaltic waves move food from one part to the other like this, and here grinding. The most vigorous peristalsis and mixing action occur close to the pylorus. Here small amounts of chyme is pushed into the duodenum, that means to the next part, simultaneously forcing most of it back into the stomach. Only some portion of food is pushed into the duodenum, into the small intestine. Here a sphincter is present, that is called pyloric sphincter, and here food is mixed and grinded. Here food is in partial in liquid state, that is called chyme. The food that is formed in the stomach is called chyme. Like that so many changes occur in the stomach. Here the food is in acidic condition, and in some animals like they are called ruminants. In Telugu it is called Nemarivesa Jantuvulu. In ruminants reverse peristalsis takes place. That means that animals, they bring back food into the mouth and chew the food, and again they swallow the food. That is called reverse peristalsis. And here this is emptying of digestive tract. 50%, it takes nearly 2.5 to 3 hours. and emptying of 50% small intestine, it takes nearly 2.5 hours, and total emptying of stomach takes 4 to 5 hours, and total emptying of small intestine takes 30 to 40 hours. Here this one is also very important. This is called villus. Actually, the inner lining of small intestine, it contains small folding like structures like this. These foldings are called actually these are called villus. In plural it is called villi. This diagram is very important, and these villus, they are actually involved in the absorption of food. Here number of blood vessels and lymph vessels are present. They are involved in the absorption of digested food. So this villus, they are number of villus are present in the small intestine. They are involved in the absorption of digested food. And this one, actually our digestive system, our alimentary canal, it contains number of nerve cells, number of neurons. Nearly 100 million neurons are present in the digestive system in the alimentary canal. So it is also called enteric nervous system. It is also called second brain. And most of the functions, they perform autonomously. So this one is called enteric nervous system or autonomous nervous system. Number of neurons equal to the spinal cord and peripheral nervous system, they are present in the digestive system. So it is called enteric nervous system, or it is also called second brain. Most of the functions, they perform individually in autonomous manner. That means without the involvement of brain and spinal cord. So this is called enteric nervous system. Sometimes when we feel tension, motion happen. This is due to the action of enteric nervous system, and so it is called second brain. All these are the important points in this lesson. So read this lesson and good luck.